Hey guys, welcome back to History Revision Success. So I'm back and I'm going to be making some new videos to help you succeed at GCSE, A-level, and do the absolute best you can do with some very clear videos to help you really understand the content and also understand exactly what it is the exam board want you to know. So this video is going to go through some context for understanding Huguenot migration. Now that fits into the thematic study of migration, which is studied at AQA. It's also studied at Edexcel. So hopefully this is helpful for a lot of you. Now, I was going to go straight into it, but actually, thinking about it myself, I realized that there's quite a big question that you need to understand before you can understand Huguenot migration, and that is really understanding the context of why these wars of religion and why there was this problem in France anyway. So for your course, we mostly focus on the impact that Huguenot migration had on England, but in this video, this first video, I'm going to talk about why it happened at all. Now, this will really help you access grade 9. It will really help you show the examiner you have very, very vast contextual knowledge and you just really understand it. So hopefully this is really helpful. So first of all, who actually were the Huguenots? Now, Huguenots were French Protestants who lived in the 16th and 17th century. They followed the teaching of John Calvin. People who followed Calvin, we often call Calvinists. And in particular, they're famous for having to flee the violence that they faced in France in the 17th century. Now, to understand why there was violence in France, why there was this thing we call the French Wars of Religion, you've got to understand that France is not at all as we know France today. France was split into lots of different kingdoms, and all of those different kingdoms had different princes and different royal families. Now, there was an overarching king of France. However, there wasn't the same kind of united loyalty that we might know of today, but also we might understand of other countries at this time. Now, from the map, you can see some of those splits. We've got particularly lands where you have a dominance of Huguenots and lands where we have dominance of the Catholic League. Now, France traditionally was a Catholic country, just like Spain, okay? However, during this period of time, the teachings of Calvin are spreading, and we do have this kind of surge of Huguenot Calvinism in France. So that's why we've got this kind of slight conflict starting to emerge. Now, that conflict really starts building in about the 1530s. Okay, now the idea of Protestantism is spreading across Europe. It's not just France. You know, we have the beginnings of it going on in England, as you know. Henry VIII is soon to change the religion in England. You've also got places like, well, today, Holland, the Netherlands, areas like that, which are becoming increasingly interested in Calvinism and Protestantism. So it's kind of spreading across Europe, and that's causing tensions in Catholic France. Now, this really comes to a head on the death of Henry II in 1559, and I'm going to go through why in a number of different ways. So hopefully, if you don't quite understand it this first time around, by the second and third way of describing it with different visual aids behind me, you'll really, really understand. Now, the death of Henry II led to a power struggle, a succession crisis. He left 4 sons and a widow, Catherine de' Medici. Now, it looked pretty secure. It looked pretty stable. He had 4 sons, all of whom were still alive, all of whom looked like they would live to adulthood and live to be kings. At the time in France, there were 2 other powerful families. We have the Guise family, who you might know of from Mary of Guise, who was the mother of Mary, Queen of Scots, if you're familiar with the Tudors and learning about that at school. They were extremely strongly Catholic family. We also have the House of Conde, who was another family with royal blood. This house was predominantly Protestant. Now, this led to what we know of as the War of the Three Henrys. So we had the Catholic Henry, Duke of Guise, who was vying for power. He was the leader of the Catholic League, which was a group of Catholics in France, but also supported by Spain. He was personally supported by Philip II of Spain. Then we have the Protestant Henry of Navarre, who was not only the heir presumptive, so that means he was actually a distant cousin of Henry II. So therefore, he could have been in line to the throne, and he was of Bourbon lineage himself. So he was supported by the Bourbons. And then we also have Henry III of France, who was the youngest of Henry II's sons, who wanted and believed in having some form of tolerance. He is supported by the royalists, people who supported Henry II and want a stable royal lineage. Now, this is hopefully another way of looking at it, but also might highlight really why it becomes a problem. So Henry II of France, the man who I said at the beginning, really sparked off this crisis of religion in France on his death, massacred Huguenots during his lifetime. So he's sparking the flames. He's angering people, he's causing radicalism, he's causing, there's absolutely no tolerance for Huguenots under Henry II. Now, he has 4 children, as I say, of which 3 are kings of France. However, his older 2 children, Francis and Charles, do not live very long, as you can see from the dates. And that's why the youngest son, Henry, finds himself in a position to inherit the throne. Now, during all of this time, we have the wars of religion, because as we said, tension is bubbling, tension is boiling. We have the Guise family, we have all these different people who want to take control. And then Henry III himself causes an even greater succession crisis, because he doesn't have a child, he doesn't have an heir. And so his legitimate heir would be his cousin, Henry of Navarre. Now, Henry of Navarre, as I said previously, is of Bourbon lineage and was a Protestant. So this is what really sparked anger from the Catholic Guise family, because they absolutely did not want to have a Protestant man inherit the throne. And that's why we really saw that spark of conflict between Henry of Navarre, Henry of Guise, and because he was on the throne, Henry III of France was also embroiled in that. And in this context, we have the persecution of the Huguenots. The wars of religion, civil war, and that group of people who are severely persecuted by those in power along the way. Okay, so hopefully that's helped you slightly give some context of the situation of what's happening politically in France, what's happening at the same time. In the next couple of videos, I'll describe what actually happens to the Huguenots and the impact that they have on England, which is where the course really focuses. But I think it's very important for grade 9 to really get this straight in your head, okay? Now, just quickly, it's been great to have results day recently. Some of the students I've been tutoring have done exceptionally well, and I've got a number of spots that have come up starting from September. So if you were interested in some one-to-one tutoring, follow the link in the description and get in touch.